Everything is breaking down. The home once filled with warmth feels colder than ever. The woman who used to look at you with affection now avoids your eyes. Her voice, once soft, now cuts like glass. You hear the words that freeze your blood. I don't love you anymore. I need space. Maybe we should separate. And there you stand, desperate, heart pounding, searching for the right words to stop her from walking out the door. You try everything. Talking, apologizing, explaining, begging. But every attempt pushes her further away. Feels like quicksand. The harder you fight, the faster you sink. Most men in your position think the answer lies in doing more. More emotions, more honesty, more promises. They think if they just show how much they care, she'll remember the man she fell in love with. But that's the exact trap. The truth, the one that hurts to accept, is that everything your instincts tell you to do right now will destroy your chances. The pleading, the explanations, the emotional confessions, they don't make her feel compassion. They make her feel suffocated. Because she's not listening through love anymore. She's listening through exhaustion. When a woman emotionally checks out, her empathy turns off. You can't appeal to her conscience or her memories. She's already rewriting the story in her mind, turning every good moment into proof of how long she's been unhappy. She doesn't remember your laughter. She remembers how fake her smiles felt. She doesn't recall your affection. She recalls the times she felt unseen. The more you try to remind her of the past, the more you highlight the emotional distance of the present. And yet, here's the paradox. What destroys your marriage isn't lack of love, but the imbalance of energy. The moment she feels you've lost your strength, she loses attraction. The man she once trusted to lead, protect, and ground her now stands trembling, asking what to do. And that sight kills something inside her. It's not cruelty. It's instinct. A woman can't love a man she doesn't respect. And she can't respect a man who collapses under emotional pressure. You think you're showing vulnerability, but in her eyes you're showing weakness. You think your tears prove sincerity, but to her, they confirm what she already fears, that you've lost control. She doesn't want to mother you. She wants to feel the strength of your presence, even in crisis. The man who panics, who over-explains, who begs for reassurance is no longer a pillar. He's debris from the collapse. So here's the brutal truth most men never hear. You cannot talk your way back into her heart. You cannot explain, convince, or promise your way into respect. You can only shock her into re-seeing you, not with words, but with transformation. You must become unpredictable again. You must become the man she can't categorize, the one she can't fully read, can't entirely control, can't confidently discard. Because right now, she thinks she knows you. She's memorized your moves, every apology, every tone, every habit. She's rehearsed this breakup in her head 1,000 times. You're following the script exactly. To break that pattern, you have to do what no one expects. Stop explaining, stop pleading, stop chasing. Go silent, calm, grounded. Agree with her instead of resisting. Tell her, you're right. Not sarcastically, not coldly, calmly, with quiet strength. Because the moment you stop fighting her words, her emotional energy has nowhere to go. She's been preparing for a battle, but you're not stepping into the ring. And that confusion creates the first crack in her certainty. When she expects panic but sees composure, her narrative wavers. When she expects begging but sees stillness, her mind begins to question everything. And in that moment of confusion, that silence she can't explain, you begin to regain something priceless, your power. This is where the real process begins. Because the only way to save a marriage that's collapsing is not to fix her. It's to rebuild yourself. The version of you that existed before this crisis. The one who took her for granted, who lost his edge, who forgot his independence, that man has to die completely. You can't repair this by being who you were. You can only reignite attraction by becoming someone she's never met before. Calm, certain, untouchable. The first phase of reclaiming your marriage isn't about saying the right thing. It's about becoming the right man, one she can no longer predict, one who no longer needs her to define his worth. The paradox is simple. The only way to win her back is to stop trying to win her at all. She's already decided who you are, and that's the problem. In her mind, you're the man who pleads, the man who over-explains, the man who always reacts. She's built an entire emotional case against you, rehearsed every argument, predicted every word you'll say, and already decided what you'll do next. She's prepared for tears, for begging, for desperate promises. She's built her strength on the expectation that you'll crumble. And that expectation is the fuel keeping her conviction alive. If you want to shake that conviction, you have to destroy her ability to predict you. Every time she expects you to argue, agree. When she expects you to chase, pull back. When she expects you to cry, stay silent. The goal is not to manipulate her. It's to become something her mind can no longer categorize. Because right now, her emotional defense system has you neatly filed under the man I've outgrown. That folder has to disappear. Imagine it this way. She's been running mental simulations for months, imagining what life without you will look like. She's already grieved you in her head, already adjusted to your absence emotionally. But what she can't prepare for is uncertainty. When you change completely, when your energy shifts from desperate to detached, from chaotic to calm, her subconscious doesn't know what to do. It's like the ground she's standing on suddenly moved. And that confusion, that brief moment when she doesn't know what's happening, is your only chance to rebuild attraction. Here's what that looks like in practice. Stop explaining yourself. Completely. No more "let me tell you why," or "you have to understand." Those sentences are poison. She doesn't care about your explanations. She hears only excuses. When she accuses you of being cold, you say calmly, "I can understand why you'd feel that way." When she says, "You never loved me," you respond, "I get why it feels like that now." When she throws your failures in your face, you don't defend, you simply acknowledge. The key is calm agreement without justification. You see, emotional distance creates curiosity. The man who's no longer reactive becomes mysterious. She starts to wonder, why isn't he fighting me? Why is he so calm? Has he stopped caring? Did he meet someone else? Those questions break her emotional certainty, and that's where her attraction begins to resurface. Because a woman's mind cannot detach from what it doesn't understand. Then, once you've stopped reacting, you must change everything else. Every habit, every routine, every predictable behavior. She knows the old you inside out, the version that came home at the same time, said the same things, scrolled the same feeds, lived the same emotional pattern. That version is dead. If you used to wake up late, start waking up early. If you spent evenings watching TV, start running, reading, or going out. If you always texted her first, stop completely. If you never texted, send one calm, neutral message days later about something practical, never emotional. If you always asked for permission, stop asking. If you always avoided conflict, start standing firm. This transformation must be complete, immediate, and silent. No announcements. No, "I'm working on myself." No, "you'll see." The moment you explain your change, you ruin it because explanation equals validation seeking. You're doing this not to win her back, but to reclaim your core. Think of it as psychological shock therapy. Her brain has built a fixed image of you, predictable, emotionally dependent, easy to read. You're about to destroy that image. And when she no longer knows who you are, she'll have to see you again. She'll have to pay attention again. She'll have to feel again. It's not about pretending to be someone else. It's about returning to the man you were before you forgot your strength, before comfort turned to dependency, before love turned to pleading. Because attraction doesn't live in words. It lives in energy, in silence, in the quiet confidence of a man who no longer fears loss. That's where true power begins, not in chasing her heart, but in reclaiming your own. When a marriage begins to collapse, what hurts the most isn't the shouting, the distance, or even the silence. It's the moment you realize you've lost the ability to influence how she feels. You used to know how to reach her. A touch, a joke, a few words could bring her back to you. But now nothing works. She's emotionally checked out, and your presence doesn't soften her anymore. You see it in her eyes, the absence. That's the most painful part. Not anger, but indifference. At this stage, most men panic. They start chasing harder, talking more, apologizing for everything, even things that aren't their fault. They try to fix the emotion, as if love were a broken pipe that just needs tightening. But emotion doesn't yield to logic or effort. The more you push, the more resistance you create, because she doesn't want you to pull her back. She wants to see if you can stand without her. That's the hidden test beneath all of this. A woman may not consciously know she's testing you, but at a deep instinctive level, she's watching one thing: your strength under emotional collapse. Can you remain grounded when everything you love is slipping away? Can you stay calm when your ego is burning to scream, to defend, to prove? That's what determines whether she ever feels respect again. Because here's the truth most men never learn. Attraction and respect are bound together. When respect dies, attraction suffocates right behind it. You can't talk her into desire. You can't apologize your way into admiration. You can only become the man whose presence demands it. And right now, that means one thing: stop trying to repair her emotions and start repairing your energy. How? Through detachment. True, grounded detachment, not pretending not to care, but actually no longer needing her approval for your stability. You start rebuilding your emotional center around yourself, not her responses. You begin to create new habits, new focus, new structure. You get up earlier. You go to the gym. You fix the house. You start reading again. You take long walks without checking your phone. You stop explaining what you're doing, and you stop trying to make her notice. Because the moment you do this sincerely, something powerful happens. The energy in the relationship shifts. She begins to sense it before she understands it. You used to orbit her emotions. Now you have your own gravity. That shift forces her to reevaluate you subconsciously. She starts watching you again, not because she misses you, but because she no longer recognizes you. And confusion in a woman's mind about who you are is the seed of renewed attraction. Understand this: women fall out of love slowly, through familiarity and predictability. They stop feeling excitement because they know you too well, your rhythms, your reactions, your moods. Predictability kills polarity. So, when you start acting from calm mystery again, she begins to feel something: not love, not yet, but tension. And tension is the bridge between indifference and desire. She might test this new version of you. She might mock it, challenge it, even get angry. "Oh, so now you don't care anymore?" she'll say. Don't take the bait. That's not anger, that's fear. Fear that she's losing the control she once had over your emotions. Fear that the story she built about you is no longer true. Fear that you might actually be fine without her. And here's where most men fail. They interpret that anger as rejection and relapse. They go right back to begging, explaining, or chasing. Don't. Her anger means it's working. Her confusion means her emotional defenses are cracking. When she doesn't know who you are anymore, she can't predict you, and unpredictability reignites curiosity. You're not punishing her. You're not playing games. You're restoring polarity. You're becoming once again the man whose presence commands respect rather than requests it. This doesn't happen through words. It happens through composure. The truth is, the woman who's ready to leave isn't looking for your tears. She's looking for a man who can stand in the storm and remain unmoved. Not because he's cold, but because he's whole. Because he doesn't collapse to keep her comfortable. Because he knows his value isn't measured by whether she stays or goes. That's the paradox of winning her back. She starts returning when she senses you no longer need her to. When she feels that you're no longer fighting for her love, but fighting for your own identity. That's when her emotional framework begins to crumble. She may not admit it right away. She might stay distant, detached, even cruel. But you'll feel the difference. The silence between you will shift. The same silence that used to feel like punishment will start to feel like curiosity. She'll start asking small questions again. Where are you going? Who are you meeting? You seem different lately. That's not casual conversation. That's the beginning of reconnection. Not through guilt or apology, but through renewed respect. When you become the man who can walk through loss without losing himself, you don't just rebuild attraction, you rebuild power. And once she sees that power again, everything she thought she knew about you starts to dissolve. At some point, Every man trying to save a dying marriage faces the same breaking point. The moment he finally stops begging for love and starts rediscovering his self-respect. It's quiet, almost invisible at first. He wakes up one morning and feels different. The panic is gone. The fear of losing her is replaced by something stronger, the realization that he's already lost himself for too long. That's when everything begins to shift. He stops performing for her attention. He stops checking his phone every 10 minutes, waiting for a reply that might never come. He stops replaying every argument in his mind, looking for the perfect sentence that would make her stay. Instead, he starts moving, not away from her, but back toward himself. The man she once fell in love with wasn't the one who pleaded. He was the one who had purpose, presence, mystery. The man who could walk into a room and make her feel safe without saying a word. That's the man who needs to return, not as a tactic, but as a truth. You see, when you stop trying to convince a woman to love you, something powerful happens. The dynamic flips. She begins to feel the loss, not of your presence, but of your stability, your energy, your quiet strength. She starts realizing that the version of you she decided to leave might not exist anymore. That's the paradox. When you truly let go, she starts to hold on. But this moment is dangerous. It's where most men destroy everything they've rebuilt. The second she shows softness, a kind message, a smile, a flicker of warmth, the desperate man inside them wakes up again. He rushes in with all the old energy. Too many texts, too much talking, too many promises. And instantly, she feels the same suffocation she ran from in the first place. You have to understand, attraction doesn't return because she misses you. It returns because she doesn't understand you anymore. Because she's watching a man who no longer fits the story she wrote in her head. The mystery is what draws her closer. The calm confidence is what keeps her there. So when she begins to reach out, you don't chase that spark. You protect it. You stay composed. You keep your tone steady. You listen more than you speak. You never remind her of the past. Never explain the change. Never say, "See, I told you I could be different." The moment you do, the spell breaks. The mystery is gone. Let her feel it instead. Let her experience the shift without you naming it. And if she starts testing you again, questioning, provoking, trying to drag you back into old patterns, don't take the bait. Tests are how she checks if the new you is real. If you react, she knows you were just acting. If you stay calm, she starts believing. Because now, your power isn't in words, it's in restraint. It's in your ability to remain still when everything in you wants to move. Here's the truth very few men ever grasp. You cannot rebuild a broken relationship by returning to who you were. You have to become someone entirely new. Not for her, but for you. Someone who no longer needs saving, who no longer seeks validation, who no longer tries to prove his worth through someone else's emotions. Because the man who tries to win back his wife never truly wins. The man who rebuilds himself until she wants to come back, he's the one who changes everything. And sometimes, when you reach that level of strength, something unexpected happens. She does come back, and you realize you no longer need her to. You look at her differently. You listen, but you don't chase. You care, but you don't cling. Because you've learned the hardest truth of all. Love is not something you plead for. It's something that recognizes strength, not desperation. Maybe she returns. Maybe she doesn't. Either way, you win, because the man who rises from this collapse will never crumble again. He'll never beg to be chosen. He'll never lose himself inside another person's approval. He'll never confuse attachment with love. This is what true transformation looks like. You stop trying to rebuild the old marriage and instead rebuild the man who was lost inside it. You stop mourning the version of her that's gone and start becoming the version of yourself that was meant to lead. Because the only way to win her back, truly permanently, is to become the kind of man who doesn't need to. And when you reach that place, that's when everything changes.